One summer afternoon, you find yourself cleaning out the dusty old attic of the new home you've moved into. It's a bit out in the countryside and out of the way, but it came cheap. The owner seemed very willing to sell it. So willing, in fact, that they seem to have left at least half of their possessions up here in the attic. And as you're sorting through the things to trash, things to sell, and things to keep, you come across a strange book. It has a simple red cover with just a title, no author, Mr. Babadook. As you open the book, you're surprised to discover that it looks like a children's pop-up book, except there's something oddly disturbing about it. For one, it features a creepy figure dressed in a long black coat and a top hat with what looks like long claws for hands. And for the other, it comes with the following piece of disturbing poetry. If it's in a word or it's in a look, you can't get rid of the Babadook. You read that simple poem aloud, and suddenly you think you hear shuffling of feet in the darkness of the attic. Looking up, you're startled to see the figure from the book. It's real. As it rears up its full height and displays its clawed hands, you suddenly understand why the owners decided to sell this house so cheap. Hello and welcome to another episode of You Versus. Today we're putting you up against the legendary demon of grief, the Babadook. No one is sure about the origins of the Babadook, save to say that it's been around at least since the late Victorian era, given its predisposition for the long coats and top hats so popular at the time. The Babadook could of course be much older than that, given that it seems to be mystically linked to a pop-up book that bears its full name. The first pop-up books were made in the late 13th century, and it's possible that the Babadook has been around as long as they have. However, as a demon, the Babadook is likely a far more ancient being, haunting humanity since its inception. Its connection to the pop-up book in question may just be its chosen avenue of haunting its victims, or perhaps part of some mystical banishment the demon suffered at some point in its past. Whatever the origins, you're gonna have to know what you're up against if you're in the Babadook's crosshairs. As usual, this will be a fight to the death, or at least a fight to banish the Babadook, since it's likely that as a demon it cannot die. So what are you potentially facing? First and foremost, the Babadook is in fact a demon, which places it in a category aside from spirits, monsters, ghouls, or other things that go bump in the night. As a demon, this means that the Babadook is more intelligent than a spirit or a ghoul, and thus far more crafty and manipulative. It understands humanity in a way that other supernatural creatures can't, as it draws both from its immortal lifespan of experiences and higher intelligence, and thus knows what makes us tick and how to exploit all of our fears. Fear is important because as a demon, the Babadook is much like a spirit, strengthened by fear, and the more scared its victims become, the more powerful that the Babadook becomes. The Babadook is, however, specifically a demon of grief and prefers to target people who have been made vulnerable by deep sadness, depression, and loss in their lives. Its hauntings are geared to further deepen those feelings of hopelessness, pain, and loss, until finally pushing its victims into either letting it possess them or doing great acts of violence. The Babadook has an arsenal of powers at its disposal and will prove difficult to counter. First and foremost, it has the ability to teleport at will, though it does show a preference to teleport to dark and shadowy areas as opposed to brightly lit spaces. This may mean that the Babadook is tied to the shadows of the world and can move through them freely, but has difficulty using its powers to escape in bright light. This isn't its only trick though, as the Babadook also displays a formidable talent for telekinesis, able to move objects as large as a couch with its mind. It can also shapeshift into people the victim is familiar with, or into mundane objects, though is given away upon closer inspection, so it has an imperfect talent for mimicry. Lastly, it's a keen manipulator, using its ability to inflict terror on its victims to gradually break down their mental defenses until they do things that the Babadook wants, which is typically to commit violence. So you're up against the dreaded Babadook. How are you going to defeat this demon of grief? First, you're going to want to defeat its ability to randomly teleport at will through the shadows. This will be key in order to keep the Babadook from getting the drop on you, and so that you can make sure to land a killing blow when the time comes. In order to counter the Babadook's ability to randomly teleport away from you, you're going to want to get your hands on a piece of hardware like the Bi-Sight LED searchlight, which can put out as much as 6,000 lumens up to a range of 800 meters. That's half as bright as the sun reflecting off white snow, and prolonged exposure directly to the eyes can lead to permanent vision problems. With a miniature sun in your hands, you'll be able to blast away even the deepest, darkest shadows, and with the ability to flood, you'll scatter any shadows directly in front of you, leaving no room for the Babadook to hide. Of course, that still leaves all the dark areas behind you that it could try to flee to. So you're going to need something that can light up really large areas, like the rising of a second sun, and nothing can light up large swaths of ground quite like an Aramax. The tool of choice by professional filmmakers who will need to work outdoors in the middle of the night, the Armax is a whopping 18,000-watt light that can be hoisted up into the air on a crane or secured to a sturdy tree. With this monster light blasting your surroundings, the Babadook will have absolutely nowhere to hide. So you've taken care of its ability to teleport, leaving the Babadook with nowhere to hide. You'll have to watch out for its ability to use telekinesis to move objects around, which it will no doubt try to use as a weapon against you. But as long as you're keeping a sharp eye on your environment and keeping your head on a swivel, you should be fine. What you should be most concerned about is its ability to manipulate your fears. Like many evil creatures that go bump in the night, the Babadook is strengthened by fear, so you're gonna have to keep a firm grip on what scares you. Unlike other demons or similar creatures that feed on fear though, the Babadook specifically feeds off grief as well, and fear that stems from that grief. So your next weapon is going to be to arm yourself with some peace of mind. If you're holding on to any particular pain or loss, let it go. Try to be grateful for the things that you already have in your life, and try to take joy in the accomplishments you achieve, such as the imminent Babadook kill you're about to score because you're a Zen master, and this shifty demon can't find any weak spots in your psyche to exploit. You've stripped the Babadook of its ability to teleport away. You've remembered the 5 Ds of dodgeball, and dodged, ducked, dipped, dove, and dodged. Everything it's tried to hurl at you with telekinesis. And when it tried to manipulate your grief and fear, you shut the Babadook down with a Dalai Lama-like level of self-mastery. Now it's time to go for the kill and end this death match once and for all, sending this demon of grief back to the fiery hell that spawned it. As you probably know by now from watching our other episodes, we here at the Infographics Show are fans of problem solving through superior firepower. And in this case, we have one and only one tool to recommend. A surefire way to blast this hellspawn out of this world and back into its own. The Super Soaker Scatterblast Blaster. That's right, a squirt gun. Only not any regular type of squirt gun, a 22-ounce beast that can deliver shotgun-like blasts of water up to 34 feet away. Except you're not going to be blasting the Babadook with any regular type of water. You're going to be using holy water blessed by a priest. As a demon, the Babadook is bound to rules of our prime material plane. If it chooses to manifest physically, that means that the Babadook took solid form in order to directly manipulate our world. Then its body would be subject to the same rules as our own bodies or anything else physical, in which case we'd recommend firepower on a level much higher than the squirt gun. However, because the Babadook doesn't manifest physically, it can't be harmed physically. That's why it needs to haunt victims in order to eventually wear them down and commit the violence it can't commit itself. So to excommunicate this demon out of our world and back to its own, at least temporarily, you're gonna have to hit it with the only thing all demons can't stand, corporal or non-corporal, holy water. Water blessed by true faith in the divine is the anathema to evil, and has the power not just to hurt evil, but to dispel it altogether. With a tank full of blessed water, your Super Soaker Scatter Blaster is a demon blasting weapon that Michael the Archangel would be envious of. That is, of course, if the water you're using has been blessed by a priest with true faith, something very, very rare in our world today. Otherwise, well, you're really only going to be making a very angry demon soaking wet, moments before it rips your soul from your body and inhabits you forever. How would you defeat the Babadook? Also, if you like this series, check out our other videos where we pitch you against something horrible. Go on, click the thumbnail. I'll wait.